Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. And what a show we have for you today. We are honored to have as our guest #1 best-selling author of Ultimate Leadership, 10 Rules for Success, Mr. Chris Cebollero. Chris, what an honor it is to have you on the show today, sir.
Thank you very much for allowing me to come on, TC. I got to say the honor's mine for joining your show, and thank you for having me on as a guest.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about this book of yours, debuting #1 on the Amazon bestseller list. You beat out some pretty notable names like Stephen Covey, John Maxwell, just to name a few. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, what a great surprise that was. And, you know, when you write a book about leadership, you just hope, somebody buys it. And for it to not only go to #1, it was in a couple categories as well. I think 3 categories it was #1. I was very, very surprised and very, very honored as well.
Fantastic. What was the prompting for you to write that book? What led you to do that?
Yeah, one of the things that I always have done as a leader is I've kind of taught my leadership team about the rules of success. And these rules of success, and in the book, Ultimate Leadership, 10 Rules of Success, it really comes from my experiences as a leader, my successes, my failures, my challenges that I've had from the very beginning. And, what lessons have we learned as I've gone through my leadership career? So rule #1 in the book is never allow your emotions to dictate your actions. Well, there's a story that goes behind allowing my emotions to dictate my actions, which now affected my leadership credibility and my leadership integrity. And that was a hard lesson to learn. So now as you take those 10 rules that you've developed over, 30-some years of being in the workforce and being a leader, now you get to share those experiences with people who may not be as fortunate to have a mentor, to have somebody to guide them. And I wanted to be able to put those rules down on paper and have it as a reference for the people who are either starting off in EMS or in that leadership, rather, or people who are already established leaders who just need to polish a little bit.
Fantastic. You mentioned a little bit about EMS. Isn't that where you made your mark in the business world?
It actually is, and it was kind of a little slip as we talk about leadership. But yes, I spent, 30 years in the medical field and a lot of that time as a paramedic, and then became the chief of EMS, later in my career where I've actually led organizations. And, I kind of cut my teeth on helping people on what could be the worst day of their life. And from there, learned the concepts of leadership, made the mistakes that I made, grew the 10 rules of success. And then as I became a leader, went ahead and taught that to not only the folks in my department, but the folks in my organization. And then it eventually grew of moving into being a coach and being a leadership consultant to outside organizations. And that's really, really been a great journey for me, is that I'm helping people now outside the medical field to develop their organizations, develop their leadership teams, of course, develop their workforce, and they're seeing great results because of that. I mean, it's really, really a great time in life.
Where does your passion for this come from, Chris?
I think that one of the things that really kind of gives me that inspiration is the fact that, I'm a student of science. Being in the medical field, you learn a lot about science. And leadership is an art and a science. And if you don't use the formulas of the science, you're not going to be able to paint the picture of success for your organization. So to me, just like any other science, you've got to add a little bit of communication. You have to have a smattering of conflict resolution. You've got to have a big dose of self-awareness. And when you start to use these formulas to make leadership work, it really is a science. And to do that really kind of gives me a lot of energy. It gives me a lot of inspiration, and it stokes the fire to keep me motivated every day.
A lot of people listening to this show would not be aware of this fact, but I am aware of it because we have such a outstanding research department here. But I have it on very good authority, Chris, that you were actually on the ground doing crisis management during the Ferguson riots. Is that true?
Oh, my Oh my goodness. Well, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, from the very first day, the horrible event happened in Ferguson, Missouri. My EMS department was right there in the middle. And for the 19 days of the August event and then leading up to the November event, it was my ambulances, and leadership team and employees that were right in the middle of the rioting and the looting and the assaults. And it was a very, very stressful time. And I have to say that I think that is one of the pinnacles of my leadership career. And I actually mentioned that in the introduction because it really kind of stretched my leadership ability. What worked today didn't work tomorrow. And what we thought was going to work tomorrow wasn't going to work at all. And we had to go back to the drawing board. And we had to, think about crisis communication and crisis management. And, we had to think about, how are we going to keep our employees safe? We actually had to fit them for body armor because it became very, very, very dicey very, very quickly that ambulances were getting shot at and rocks and bottles were being thrown. And my responsibility was to make certain, as their leader, that they went home at the end of their shift to be with their families. And it was a very, very interesting time. There were a lot of lessons that came out of it. I learned a lot about myself in those situations, in the situations that happened there. It certainly is something that I share now in my coaching and in my leadership development business, because a lot of people are now thinking about crisis management and crisis communication, and it really could be anything. And I got to tell you, with that firsthand knowledge, I've even given some consultation to the folks that were in Minnesota when they just had their recent event. We were on a conference call talking about what to expect, what not to expect, and it was that real-world experience that helped them prepare to make sure that their employees were kept safe.
Well, there's a difference between book knowledge and real in-the-trenches leadership experience. Wouldn't you agree?
I think that really is true. And, one of the things that you read in the book, and you go back to even, the school of becoming a paramedic, when you read it in a book, it doesn't give you the, whereabouts to say, how am I going to apply this? And then when you're in those situations, what you learned in the books isn't coming true, and it's not working the way the book said it was supposed to work. So I think what you really have to do is you have to be able to take a cross-section of what you read, what you learn, what you experience, and then from there, make the best decisions you can in the moment. And sometimes those decisions aren't going to go right. TC, they say you got to develop a plan. Here's what you have to know about your plan. Just get started. And then from there, whatever else happens and whatever else you have planned, it may not work and you may have to change it. So your plan is very easy. Just get started and let's go and see what happens and address things as they come up. And that's what we tried to do during the Ferguson crisis.
So your company actually offers crisis management as well, does it not?
It sure does. I mean, we work on, coaching. We work on leadership development, but a big component now is crisis management. And it doesn't matter what career field you're in, because there's always an opportunity and there's always challenges that can come up that cause crisis within the organization. And how do you deal with that crisis? And how do you address the workforce's concerns? And how do you engage the stakeholders? And how do you deal with the media who's camped? I got to tell you, when they talk about a media circus, I had no idea what a media circus was until we were thrust into the middle of the Ferguson crisis. I had a New York Times reporter show up on the porch of my house wanting to interview me about what was going on. I mean, how does he know where I live? And I guess that's another good research department, TC. But, it was really interesting that how we now deal with those things, but being able to share those experiences with other folks out there really kind of helps them out in those situations.
Man, I'm a big believer in earning the right to do things, and my goodness, have you ever earned the right to consult on crisis management? Talking about being in the center of that firestorm, what an amazing experience to find yourself in.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it really was. And, I got to tell you, when you first start off and you look at it, to me, with the experience that I've had in my career as a leader, it was just another day at the office. And as the events of the day started to unfold, you realize that, hey, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of something here that's a lot bigger than I thought it was. And, as you start to go through the turmoils of the day, all you're doing is trying to make decisions. And then little by little, you talk about the snowball now becoming an avalanche, and that's what you found yourself in the middle of. So I'm glad that I kind of walked into it thinking everyday scenario, but then the eventuality was going to be I'm in something that's bigger than myself, and I've now got to be able to make decisions differently. I've got to be able to, chat with my peers. I've got to be able to talk to the other public safety directors who were involved. And we needed to make the best decisions, because what my responsibility was and what your responsibility is as a leader out there is to make sure that you grow, make sure you develop, and make sure you keep your workforce as safe as they can be. And that really was my sole focus, of making sure that they went home to their families and that they weren't talked about on the evening news.
Well, you talk about ultimate leadership, the title of your book. That is ultimate leadership, during that moment in time, without a doubt. Let me ask you, Chris, you mentioned a little bit about your coaching and your consulting. Tell us a little bit more about that, what you do and who you serve in that area with your company.
Yeah, thanks. And one of the things that we look at with our leadership development and our coaching services, and they're really kind of two different animals. You try to develop the individual, or you try to develop the group, and this is where you really try to hone in on, what are the sticking points, and how do I develop to the next phase? I mean, think about it. We all want to find something different. We all want to find ultimate success. But if we try to find them in the same everyday habits, we're finding the same everyday outcomes. So now what we've got to do is we've got to think outside the box, and how do we get to that next phase? We get to the point that we are now, and we think that that is our potential. It's not our potential. It's our current level of awareness of our potential. And what we have to do now is we've got to be able to build ourselves outside the everyday and get to that next phase. Well, in the coaching arena, it's our job to make sure that we help those individuals identify what's going to get them to the next step. When it comes to leadership development, we work with the leadership teams of organizations. We work with the supervisors of organizations. We work with the workforce of organizations to make certain that we increase employee satisfaction, which increases employee engagement. Now you're going to have better productivity, and the end result, TC, is that you are going to have an outstanding experience for your clients and customers. You have to remember that people don't buy services and people don't buy products. What they buy is outcomes. And you've got to be able to make certain that whatever your niche is in business, you've got to be able to make sure that you deliver the outcomes that your clients and customers serve. And you only do that with a healthy workforce, with strong leadership, and a clear vision for the future.
Man, that was good. I love it, man. You've got me all fired up on this show, Chris. I'll tell you what, talking about ultimate leadership. All right, brother, let me ask you this. Now that I got you rolling, what leadership qualities in leaders do you most admire and why?
Wow. I mean, I've always admired the people that seem to have an answer for any situation. And you think about where are they getting these answers from? Where are they getting these, these responses that they need? And really what it comes down to is it comes down to experience. Are they right all the time, 100% of the time? Sometimes we make decisions and we're not right. But I think the leaders who are decisive, I think the leaders who are able to make certain that they're taking care of their employees, the leaders who have great self-awareness and communication skills, those are the folks that I look up to, and I try to emulate the mentors that I have those characteristics, and I try to learn from them. I try to polish what they give me, and I try to make them better for myself, and then in turn to the people that I work with, the clients and customers that I work with in my business, to make sure that I help them see the attributes that they need to be successful. Just because my attributes work for me doesn't mean they're going to work for you. And what's imperative is that we find out what attributes and qualities are going to make you the best leader that you can be.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, what has been, in your opinion, what's been the key element of your success that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think the key element is my passion and my drive and motivation. I want people to feel it. Again, I enjoy the science of leadership, and, you can't paint the picture of success unless you know the science and work, all aspects of the art and science of leadership. So what keeps me moving is, the things that I get to inspire people on. I just came back from teaching a weekend course in Virginia, and, the leaders that were there, they showed me goosebumps on their arm when we start to talk about what their future is going to look like. And I didn't know what it was. I thought somebody was hailing a cab. And when I stopped and said, what's going on? It's like, you're giving me goosebumps. That's what drives me. And that's what gives me motivation. Because the things that we say and the things that we put the people into the direction of, this is where ultimate success comes from your ultimate leadership. That's what gets me up in the morning. I want people to know that their organization can be the best organization that they can make it, but they have to make it.
Well, it sounds like you've got the name of your next book, Ultimate Success.
I'm writing that down right now, TC. I'm coming from you. You've got that crystal ball of the future. I'm writing it down. That's right. The Ultimate Series.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, thinking of that, what are some of the business projects that you're currently working on that you're excited about here upcoming in the upcoming months?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm working on now, and you can certainly check that out on our website, www.chriscebollero.com, CHRISCEB as in boy, OLLERO.com. And one of the things that I wanted to be able to do is not everybody can, work with a leadership coach or a leadership consultant, and maybe it's time or maybe it's finances, but people still need the opportunity to gain some leadership knowledge. So one of the things that we started to do is develop some 30-minute, 45-minute narrated PowerPoint presentations that people now can get online. And, some of the ones we have up there is about servant leadership and the foundations of servant leadership, or leading with emotional intelligence, or basic leadership skills even, TC. So we're really now starting to develop an online component so folks are able to get some leadership when they have some time. Or, as a leader, it's our job to develop our people. If we're not bringing the very best out in our people, are they going to help us be the very best organization that we can be? But sometimes we don't have time to give them that knowledge. But you know what? Here's a 60-minute PowerPoint on basic leadership skills. Let's go ahead and watch it, and let's go ahead and talk about those outcomes. That right now has got me really stoked, and I'm really excited to really start to develop more and more content that people can have that bite-sized leadership development.
Man, that's incredible, Chris. Absolutely incredible. Let me ask you, what are one or two things that you'd like to say to a prospective client who stumbles across this interview? What would you say to them?
I think when you look at leadership, are you able to make certain that your organization is developing into the very best that it can? I mean, sometimes we have the vision of what our organization is going to look like, but through the minutiae of the day and the schedules and the budgets but are we able to really bring our workforce and leadership team to that next level? Let me assist you in meeting your organizational objectives of success, and we can work together. Unlike other consultants, I don't come in with a can of solutions. I sit down with you and I talk to you and I find out what your organization is about and I find out where the challenges are, and together, you and I, we build a program for your organization. And I think that's what sets me out from the competitors, is I'm not coming in with a 10-step plan that says, here you go, let's make this work. We're developing the plan for your organization to make certain that we can maximize the outcomes for your leadership success.
Fantastic. Well, as we wrap it up, Chris, how can folks get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm the type of person where you can call me directly, and I'm going to give you my cell phone number is 314-297-6850, and I'm going to be the one that answers that phone. Why? Because you're an important part of my success, and I want to be there for you. As I mentioned as well, you can go to our website at www.Cebollero, CEB as in boy, OLLERO.com. check out our products page. You're able to, see some really great stuff there, overview of the things that we help you accomplish. And but the best way, go ahead and give me a call, and I'll be there to answer your call.
Fantastic. Chris, and your book is available also at your website and on Amazon.com as well, correct?
Yes, it is. You can go to Amazon.com, and there is also a link on the website that you can get to that as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and chat with you, TC. I appreciate the folks that are out there, and whatever resource I can be to the folks that are there, I'm happy to chat with you and see if we can work together.
Chris, there is so much, that we can talk about. I'd love to have you back on a future edition of the show. There are just so many different areas that we can just park the car and really have a great conversation about crisis management, the leadership, the success. There's just so much value there that you bring to the table. I'd love to have you back in the future if you would agree to do so.
Oh, it'd be my honor. I mean, anytime I have the opportunity to come and visit with such a great voice on the other end, I'm happy to do that, TC.
All right, Chris. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this edition of the show. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.